Hello once again, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of AIW's The Card is Going to Change. Before we get into this week's episode, of course, a shout out to our typical sponsors that have been helping us bring this show to you for free each and every week on whichever platform you choose to listen. Thanks to Angelo's Pizza in Lakewood, Ohio. One day, at some point, we will get back to having live AIW shows in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and we'll have Angelo's Pizza for you. But until then, you can still enjoy Angelo's by getting pickup or delivery or dining in socially distant and safe at Angelo's on Madison Avenue in Lakewood, Ohio. Thanks to, we'll thank everybody. Thanks to Thrift Store Jobber. Thanks to Voodoo Monkey Tattoo. Anybody who's ever given us money, let's just go with that.
Go down the line, man.
Ebbtide Treatment Center.
Ebbtide, baby.
Thrift Store Jobbers who worldwide used to do the phone calls for. I was thinking he did voicemails for somebody else, but that was Thrift Store Jobber.
All our listeners in the Portland, Oregon area, Ebbtide, I'm sure they could help you out eventually down the road.
Yeah, good for Oregon. What else we got? Smart Mark Video, of course, and Independent Wrestling .tv. That great merger makes it easier. Yeah.
One time, I can't think. The Pleasure Chest. The Pleasure Chest. Back in the day, Jack of All Trios weekend, Drew Cordero secured us an adult shop sponsorship. The Pleasure Chest was an official outlet of AIW. They gave us money once at one point. Coors Light beer. Thank you for your support in 2007.
Yeah, Melt gave us T-shirts through Wrestling is Forever. Of course, Pollyanna DIY. Do we get just about everyone?
I'm sure there's some other ones, but
yeah.
Let's keep it moving.
Smart Mark Video and Independent Wrestling TV. Watching AIW has never been easier. You can purchase DVDs and MP4s through smartmarkvideo.com or sign up to IWTV using the code ABSOLUTE. Get yourself a 5-day free trial. Watch a revolving AIW archive, as well as plenty of other independent wrestling promotions. And, of course, right now, the Masked Wrestler, their big breakout show happening on Wednesdays with Mr. Brickster of the Rip City Shooters sitting on there as
Spent some time with Brickster
a judge
in the September to early October.
Yeah. And, of course, Trey Lamar, AIW's own, was just recently...
Spoiler alert. I didn't watch all the episodes yet. What's his name? What was his name? The Great Blue Deanie or something?
Blueski.
Oh, I thought wasn't that a Kool-Aid flavor? The Great Blue Deanie.
Yeah, that was. I think. Yeah, he was the Blueski or something. I don't know.
What's that mean?
I have no idea.
He should have went with the Great Blue Deanie.
But yeah, so check it out.
I'm sure they let that trademark lapse.
Absolutely. 5-day free trial. Use the code ABSOLUTE on IWTV. We get into this week's episode. It's going to be a hodgepodge of sorts. AIW owner John Thorne here, as always. And my name is Steve Guy, your moderator of sorts. And there'll be plenty of things that we chat about in here. I think first, let's lead off with this, John. Eddie Kingston main evented Full Gear from AEW last night. Not going to try to...
Did he ever have some full gear on?
That was a tribute to Masawa. Did you know that?
I did.
But he was...
He swerved me, though. I said, he came out with b-ball short actual gear, and I did not know what to think about this.
It was a combination of them. The shorts may have been a part of the loss. I don't know. But... the one thing that he did do when he came out is he was wearing a Tracy Smothers t-shirt. And if you follow professional wrestling, independent wrestling at all, you know that our great friend here from AIW, Tracy Smothers, recently passed away. And that was an awesome tribute. And I also appreciated that it opened the door for the commentators to be able to talk about Tracy as well, because two different... experiences. It really summed up all of Tracy's career, because he had Jim Ross and Shivani sitting there talking about the Tracy Smothers that they knew from way back when, and then we had Excalibur, paying homage to really our generation who knew Tracy Smothers in terms of what he brought to the independent scene and just being an amazing influence on so many people. So I thought that was really cool, and I was happy to hear them talk about him.
Yeah, man, the Tracy Smothers thing, I know that we were going to do a podcast about this last week, and it just wasn't happening, but it's probably better, because that stuff, I didn't think that was going to hit me as hard as it did, and it definitely hit me real hard. And, you start thinking about, I've been seeing Tracy Smothers come to Cleveland, Ohio since like 1998, and he's always been a constant throughout all the years and the different kind of eras of wrestling in the Cleveland area. So it was real, I don't know, like it was real shocking to see, especially, I know that he's been sick and, keeping up with it on Facebook, and he had posted just a few hours before the news came out that he passed away. And I don't know, it shocked me. I got a text from Jock Sampson, and he's like, "Hey, can you call me?" And Jock Sampson, infamous phone call guy. Jock Sampson, infamous text about wanting to have a phone call guy. And it was like in the late morning, and I was at work, and I was like, "Hey, I'm working right now. I really can't talk." And he said, "Well, I'm sure you saw that Tracy passed away. I don't think the family wants the word out." And I said, "What? Tracy who? Tracy Smothers?" And he was just, that's how I found out. And I was shocked, and I thought if not a lot of people knew, I went into our group chat, and I said something in there, and then I texted Little Guido, and I broke the news to Little Guido, which was super weird to do,
Yeah.
And it's just it's crazy, it's just it's shocking, and it just makes you think about, I don't know, like it's kind of like relevant to what's going on in the world with the election and all this other stuff, but like it's really crazy because if you look at the last time we booked him, I still got this fucking cough I've had for like 2 months. It's like when Meltzer had that cough for 3 years. But so if you look, the last time we booked him, Tracy says something he shouldn't, and
Yeah.
we get a lot of backlash from that instantly from some people that were there, and obviously a lot of the fans knew that it was not did not come with any malice. Mm-hmm. But it had happened a few other times over the years, and that I thought that ends up being, I'm 99% certain, the last time the majority of us, including me, ever saw Tracy Smothers. And it's just like, you think about how that's, I guess, internet culture of not understanding his mistake was like, we probably can't book Tracy again for a while. And I don't know, that has also kind of weighed on me a lot, because it's just like, we were able to, Tracy was so apologetic after that.
He was, yeah.
And, we ended up having a couple beers, and, a lot of that night is actually, we filmed some of that, drinking some beers with Tracy at the Goldhorn Brewery. Mm-hmm. But, I just think about that, and it's just like, man, like, it really sucks that we had to make that decision to not bring him back again anytime soon because of that, and because people were so not understanding about what he was doing. And look, I get, you can't say what he says. I think everybody agrees with that. However, the guy is just from a different time, and
well, let me expand on this a little bit, because I am obviously much more recently having been on the outside looking in and then brought in than you, who have been a part of this for 20 something years. And I think what people don't understand or know about Tracy, and nobody really brought up the fact that he was wearing the rebel flag after he passed, and there's tribute videos and things. But part of why Tracy wore that, and it wasn't necessarily like a belief in what that stood for, but he comes from this old school heel thing, and that's dressing as a character, right? What's going to get you instantly heat when you're a guy traveling up to the north? You wear a rebel flag. You're the dirty southern scoundrel that immediately now everybody hates. That was his objective, and in the 70s and 80s, man, that worked. And even in the 90s, that worked.
It worked in the early 2000s.
Yeah, and so what I think people don't know, and what people don't realize about Tracy, is that I always say people don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And Tracy, outside of wrestling, is a guy who didn't do much. I mean, he went to his shoot job. He had a shoot job, and
every now and then, Sandy's Pizza. Give him some love.
Sandy's
Pizza.
But you know what I mean? Like he would be at home and hang out with his friends and family. And oh, by the way, if you question it, his friends, especially his friends in wrestling, are from every walk of life, in terms of race, sexual orientation, all of that. And you know, I say you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. Obviously, as we've talked about many times, times have changed, things have been different, and you understand how words and things impact people. And he said a word that he should not have, and you alluded to it. You said he had said it previously, but he's a guy that just would go to wrestling shows and then kind of went about his life. He wasn't necessarily up to date on pop culture, I guess is where I'm going with this.
And that's I see where you're going. And I just want to add, you know, you said he had a shoot job or whatever, but I would say for the greater part of 30 plus years, he was just lived on the road.
Yeah.
You know, he just did wrestling.
Yep.
And this is what he did. And he was sticking to what he did, and what he did was working, and nobody was booking Tracy for representing the rebel flag. People were booking Tracy because at one time, especially in the late 90s, he was the hardest working man. I mean, if you think about this guy has been booked solid, even, you know, up until he got sick, he was booked solid. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we all know that he was not working at the caliber in which he was known for in the late 90s and early 2000s, but he was booked solid because he built these relationships and built these friendships and was such a good guy behind the curtain, you know, and it just really kind of bothered me when, you know, I was really thinking about that, and I was just thinking, like, man, what a sour way for him to exit AIW, you know, now forever. But on the flip side of that, which, you know, people don't know, and I know, I'm pretty sure that I put like a vlog of it on Patreon. You know, we sat and we had beers and we filmed some of it, and we were able to laugh about it because, you know, he was so apologetic, and it's just like, Tracy, you know, I'm not mad at you. I understand. But what bothered me is not everybody understands, and not everybody was willing to give him
or try to understand.
Right. And it was just so, you know, people were just so quick to judge and jury and execute him and, you know, execute me for, like, I'll never forget, like, people thought that was written on the sheet. And it was like my big mastermind plan for him to go out there and do that. And it's just like so ridiculous. And, you know, that's kind of what I thought over the last week or two, is just like, and this isn't like an indictment of fans, you know, not all fans, but some fans. Like, it was just so, I don't know, like, it just bothered me because, you know, now I look back on that, and that ends up being why that's the last time I see Tracy Smothers, because I'm concerned about the backlash and how people took things, and it's just a really unfortunate kind of sequence of events, and now he's gone, and I'm never going to see him again.
Well, and where I wanted to get to with that, in terms of pulling back the curtain, is for those people to understand the actual man that Tracy Smothers was. So there's a guy who, he doesn't know that he can't say certain things or do certain things until you tell him, because he's not keeping up to date with what's going on. And you can say for whatever reason, maybe he should this or that or whatever, but also you got to learn from somebody, and you got to learn from somewhere. So he's worked countless wrestling shows, and at no point in time has anybody corrected him on this. And Tracy is the kind of guy where when you tell him, he's going to be apologetic like he was.
I will cut you off because he was told when it's happened before, but
okay,
let's be real. Like, this guy, he's a wrestler. He's been wrestling for, almost 40 years. He's not going to, and it's not like, listen, like he's not wrestling things that are as, and I think something similar also happened when he did GCW, but he's not wrestling like on these very kind of watched or followed promotions. He's doing everything. He's doing everything from things that aren't on Smart Mark Video to things that aren't even recorded, like he's doing it all. He's hitting every show. He's wrestling at flea markets and parking lots and arenas and hotel ballrooms. Like, he's everywhere. So, while, he has been told, also, he might go down and wrestle somewhere in the South and he gets a big pop when he says stuff like that.
Yeah.
There are
hears people saying it. Yeah.
There are differences in cultures and just where shows happen. And, I think that is blatantly obvious based on how this election has went. It's pretty apparent that there are differing, the country is pretty divided on a lot of things. So I think that Tracy, while he was told, before, the previous incident probably happened 2 years before, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, he was not the most, the most on it guy in his, later years, obviously. Mm-hmm. And, he just said it in the heat of the moment because that's, for 25 plus years that worked for either, and I think that he thought that it was going to get a babyface reaction when he did say it.
Yeah, I think so. And then he immediately, going back to it, he immediately knew.
He knew. And, it sounds bad to say that we had a laugh about it, but we weren't laughing about the word and what it means. It was the mistake and, how apologetic it was. And it wasn't like, I wasn't going to yell at him and say, like, Tracy Smothers is the worst person, walking the earth. And, I don't know. I just think, like, for whatever reason, that it just really bothered me that that's, the final. And I'm pretty sure it was, we had it edited off the DVD, like that, at least that, or the audio was dropped or something. But, nothing Robles isn't used to doing when Tracy Smothers is around. But I just think that it was an unfortunate thing that, now for all of us in AIW, that was, the last kind of experiences we got to have with them. And, it's just, it's crazy. It's sad. And, if you knew Tracy Smothers on any sort of real level, you would know that he is a great guy. And so where you were going with that, like, it really blew my mind about how amazing wrestling is. And, we've brought this up before, but, how in the real world, people can't seem to find any common ground anywhere. But in a wrestling locker room, there's a lot of common ground between a lot of different types of people. Mm-hmm. And, I'm scrolling social media and, you see, black wrestlers and Latino wrestlers and Asian wrestlers and, men and female and various sexual orientations, and they're all posting pictures with this guy in a Rebel Flag t-shirt. And I was just like, this is crazy, because this really shows the picture about how accepting he was of everybody and how friendly and just so giving to wrestling he was. I mean, if you think about, you probably can't even put a number on the amount of people that he has positively influenced in wrestling throughout his entire years, whether it was in the 90s to the independence to, as recently as, this year. He took so much time always, he was always a guy, this guy's been wrestling, almost 40 years. He was always a guy that would watch the show and watch, if he's on the second half, he's watching the whole first half to see how the crowd is and to give people feedback. And he didn't care if you're black, white, brown, whatever, male, female. He would tell you, hey, that looked good. Hey, do this. Hey, how about this? And, like even PB Smooth, I talked to him about it, and he's like, man, I was kind of like really not sure about Tracy Smothers because, he's walking in with a Rebel Flag and, he's got it on his shirt and he's got the flag and, and he's like, then he just comes over and starts giving me feedback and putting me over and saying all this great stuff to me. And he was like, it really was like a mind fuck, but I was just like, I know what that flag means. I just don't think it meant that to Tracy Smothers. As crazy as that sounds and as ununderstanding as people will probably think that statement is, like, he just did not he did not care about any of that, and he treated everybody great, honestly, and that showed by, if you looked at social media over the last 2 weeks, how many people were saying great things about this guy. And it's amazing because it's every level. It's, world champions to guys you never heard of and will never hear of, it's, and girls. It's Tracy hit the whole spectrum. And I think it goes back to, like I said, he's wrestling in arenas, he's wrestling in parking lots, flea markets, everything in between. And no matter what, good, bad, whatever, he would take the time to befriend people and try to help them and give advice. And, I'll never forget, I don't know which Absolution it was, but we did a pay-per-view. It was at Turner's Hall era, maybe like Absolution 8 or 9, and Tracy Smothers was on the show. And he just, gives this impromptu locker room speech like we're going on real pay-per-view. And he's like, we're on pay-per-view tonight, guys. You got to get out there and you got to lay it in. And, you guys do all these spectacular moonsaults, don't steal all my shit, save some of that for me. But we're on pay-per-view tonight. And, when the cameras are on and we're live and we're broadcasting, you don't know how many people are going to watch this. He's like, you got to get out there and you got to give them a show. You can't make AIW look bad. You can't make yourself look bad. And he always just wanted everybody in wrestling to succeed. If it was up to him, everybody would have a $1 million contract. And, he just, I don't know. He's just, you're never going to see probably a guy like him again that has hit the scene as much as he did and was never in a bad mood, never crabby, never like, hey, not today. I'm not in the mood today. He was always just, I don't know, like he's a one of a kind guy, and I really just I'm gonna miss him.
Yeah, he's easily going to be missed. He paid attention to everybody and everything, complimentary to everybody. Like, I'm nothing on the grand scheme of things, but would come over to me and be like, hey, you're really good at the ring announcing. You know what I mean? Like, all right, thanks, Tracy. Like, I'm saying names, but I appreciate it. And it's like, you've just paid attention to every single thing. You're talking about social media and different people. And I just want to point out, for the sake of it, like Nyla Rose, openly trans wrestler on AEW, and she's posting about the kindness that Tracy Smothers regularly showed her, and I guess helped out on situations where it was in need, and Tracy looked out for her. Like, that's that's who he was. Tracy, honestly, I know the character and the gimmick, it was always a joke about how he's going to come out in the crowd and beat everybody's ass and murder people.
Ultra Mega Mass Homicide.
Yeah, but the man behind that couldn't be any more opposite in terms of what he thought of people.
Everybody. Yeah. I mean, he's just the greatest. And, I know that probably in one of the very early podcasts, Chandler told this story, but it was why, Chandler just like it was his favorite Tracy Smothers story, at least up until a point. And it was at Tracy was a regular for Cleveland All Pro all the time. And he locked his keys in his car by accident. And, JT had to go home to his family and everyone had to leave. And, he was waiting for AAA and Chandler said, hey, Tracy, he's like, it's cold out, it's the winter. He said, I'll wait with you, and he, him and Tracy hung out for hours in his car while he waited. And he said, let's go up to the store, kid. And he went to the store and, he wanted to get snacks or something to drink. And he came out with a bag of Doritos and he threw it at Chandler. He said, there you go. Start eating healthy, man. And, I don't know. Chandler just loved that story, and he told it all the time. And that's just one of those that's the thing that Tracy was so quick-witted and had such this weird dry humor about him too.
Yeah.
And Chandler just loved that story, and it's crazy. I mean, it's just I just could not believe when that news was confirmed and it was real. And it was,
it's we knew he was getting sick, but it's one of those
you
things.
You always hope
exactly,
for the best.
Exactly. And knowing the guy that he was and who he was, you're like, he's gonna fight out of this. It's Tracy Smothers, and
that's another thing.
He's gonna be around.
I hate to harp on people, but a lot of people, he was whatever. He had his political beliefs too, and he would post that on Facebook, and a lot of people wrote him off for that. And it's just at the end of the day, come on, who cares what side of the fucking political spectrum people are on? They're people, and Tracy Smothers was a person, and he was a great person, and there was a lot of people that just, told him to fuck off because, he would have these, pro-Trump whatever, and that's just what he thought. Who cares? Honestly, now the guy is gone, and there's a good amount of people that hated him for his final months over his fucking Facebook post, your fucking crazy uncle would post on Facebook. You know what I mean? It's just it's just crazy to me that maybe it's just because we know him and we know what a good guy he is, and maybe people don't. I don't know, but I guess that's the point of this podcast, is to maybe explain that he was a good person. And
I think people don't realize how open-minded he was, as we talk about people not to talk about politics, but how polarizing they are. Yeah.
People don't realize that does not define you as your entire being. It is not defined by a vote. It's defined by what you do and how you impact people. And I don't give a shit who anybody voted for. I don't care who Tracy Smothers voted for or was going to vote for. He probably didn't get the vote, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's just crazy. Everyone just needs to just relax and tone it down, because we all thought Tracy's there was not a moment in time that I thought Tracy Smothers was not going to beat cancer. There was not one instance where I was like, man, he's not going to do it. Because you know what? He was still out doing autograph signings and, photo ops and going to conventions, and, his head was totally shaved and he was just still out there. And
smiling, by the way.
Yeah, and smiling. And, even his last post was in the emergency room, I forget what it is.
It was something about puking my guts out or something.
Yeah, it's puking up bile, but
LOL.
It's great to be alive on this wacky Wednesday, or something like that. And it was just that. That's just, it would take you fucking days to scroll and find that post at this point based on how often he's been tagged. But,
Right.
it's just, the guy had to have known that he was on his way out, and like, he just, to the very end was like, Wacky Wednesday, let's go, guys. Haha. And, I don't know, man. It's just such a great guy, honestly.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
it's sad, and it makes you think, like, a lot of these guys are getting up there. But what was shocking to me is I don't think any of us ever had any idea or any way to guess on exactly how old Tracy Smothers was. It was the biggest mystery, at least to me, ever. He could have been 45. He could have been 65. I would have had no idea. And I was kind of shocked that he was so young, to be perfectly honest. I think
Well,
it was 58,
yeah.
like...
Here's a guy taking his teeth out and putting them back in. You usually, put
But
that
you know
on
what
a
I
much
mean?
older
Like,
age. Yeah.
Not to do a Tracyism, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could have guessed, like, he could have been any age, honestly. I would have accepted it.
Yeah. I mean, man, you think about
But when
that.
you see 58, you're just like, man, that's not that
It's
old.
not that old. Yeah. And he, but you think about the life he lived in 58 years, man. Like, he started wrestling so young. He started in 1983?
83 or 82.
Yeah.
I think it was probably, I don't know what the math is on that, but probably right out of high school, like I would think, or, right, close to high school, like post high school.
So
like
he would have been he probably started training at like 19 or 20, and then by the time like 1983 he's 21. So I mean, you're talking about, I guess, for AIW perspective, right? You're looking at Josh Bishop and Trey Lamar wrestling for nearly 40 years.
So like I just looked, he was born in 62, so yeah, that's, I mean, and that is what he did for his entire life, until the end. And I'm sure he had odd jobs and different, things, but yeah, it says 1982. I just looked it up. He started his career in 1982 after being trained by Steve Kern and Jerry Jarrett.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
So truly starting to train right out of high school.
Right.
Because, I mean, as we know, you're not getting your first match.
Well, back in those days, it was a little different. But
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
but,
but
still with some time.
20, 21,
yeah.
like.
It's wild. I mean, that's and the people, I feel like it just can't be said enough, because again, even going back to Full Gear, listening to JR and Tony Schiavone comment about it, and even they were kind of like, way back then in Tracy's youth, he was a guy concerned about everybody else, looking out for everybody else, wanting everybody else to be great and make them look great. That's why there are so many people from Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to Ricochet to PB Smooth who loved him.
And I think it was Monsoon Classic had a really good tweet about how he was one of those last links really from the territories to modern indies, and he kind of was a bridge to that gap of differences and evolution of what wrestling has become. And yeah, I mean, you're not going to see too many guys like that anymore, if at all.
Ryan Nemeth and I have had a couple conversations about him, but the one time we were talking about wrestling in Cleveland in general, he's telling the story about how he thought that Tracy Smothers was just a Cleveland pro wrestler because he grew up watching him and going to shows and seeing him always here, and he thought that he lived in Cleveland, and to him he was a big star, but he was a big star from Cleveland. And then, so Ryan gets signed with WWE. He's down to FCW, which comes to NXT and everything. And it's a part of their homework assignment was to take, because they wanted the guys and gals down there to learn about everybody who had an impact on the business. And they had to, for an assignment, look at someone who was huge in the Florida territory and basically emulate them, but do like a whole report about them. And Ryan was looking at the list and found Tracy Smothers, and it blew his mind that Tracy Smothers was a Florida territory wrestler and had this whole life that wasn't Cleveland pro wrestling. But that's
well, like,
it
yeah,
speaks
like
about who he is.
Whenever Tracy would be on AIW, that's really what like created the friendship between myself and AIW and Dolph Ziggler, because he would always send me a message like, "What time Smothers on tonight?" And he's like, "I'm in town. What time Smothers on?" And then he would show up to a show in like a lucha mask to watch Tracy Smothers wrestle. And then after a while, he just said, "Fuck it," and he would just show up. And But yeah, it's crazy all the people that he has kind of affected and impacted. And like, I would read a book of just everybody's remembrances on social media, because there were so many. It was impossible to read every single one of them, but like everyone had these like great stories. And it's just it's sad. It really is sad. And like it hit me pretty, and I'll put you over, Steve. You put that video together, and man, that video got me. It did get some tears flowing the first 2 or 3 times I watched it, because I watched it multiple times in a row, and man, that was a tearjerker, no doubt. That was that, and something else got me, and I can't even recall what it was at this point, but 2 things like really kind of put me over, and the video was definitely one of them.
It was I'll tell you, making the video was it was bittersweet and fun, because I got to go through our archives, and I didn't even get to go way back. Ryan, again, we were talking about, and he had tweeted out about how his first match back in the independents after getting fired from WWE was with Tracy Smothers, and Tracy
I don't know if it might have been. I know that they definitely did something. It was, he was like a last minute. I know that they definitely did stuff in AIW. I don't know if it was the first one. It very well could have been.
Ryan said it was his first match after being fired, and
well, that's funny then.
And Tracy got Ryan's mother to scream and chant, "You got fired," at her son. And so, but I'm putting this thing together, and it took me so long, because I'm watching these Tracy Smothers AIW matches through the years, and whether it's Cabana or the match with Grado and the little girl yelling at Tracy that he sucks, and Tracy gonna run out after her, and it's just
hilarious.
It's so funny and so fun to watch, and that I laughed for hours watching all of it. And then it was not until I finally had everything clipped and I had that short little bit, and there's something about music, and I just thought Tom Petty has always been this sweet southern sound to me that I always loved, and I don't know why, but immediately when I thought about what can I remember Tracy with? What is a song that makes me think of him? And I thought of that song, Wildflowers. And the moment I put that to the clips, I started tearing up as I'm watching this thing just happen. And I just, it sucks. It sucks. It was nice to be able to make that, but it was quickly then like a very, and I didn't know him as long as you did, obviously, and didn't get to spend as much time with him. But through my 5+ years around AIW, I've gotten the chance to, and it's just the moment all that thrown together I watched. It's like, man, that it hit like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to, these dance breaks aren't going to happen anymore. And, even watching that when there's a match with he and Guido or Nunzio, whatever you want to call him. But, when those two are together and they do the dance break and Guido kind of dances, but really just leaves Tracy to do it. And man, when he gets on the mat and just starts doing the swimming move and rolls over and
when you put that part and it's just like, let me go to a place where I'm free or whatever the lyric of that song is. Oh man, that got me.
Yeah. And same. And I just thought, I'm like, but the words, the lyrics is like, there was nothing, it summed him up so well to me, and what everybody thought of him. But it hurt. Yeah. The moment I was together, but I want to do that for him and for guys like you who, loved Tracy Smothers and truly appreciated the person that he was. And I appreciate, as we look and see how many people shared that around, it brings joy to know that we all can agree on this one thing in one person,
And that's what's crazy is like, really, you can't really put a number on the people he impacted. I remembered what the other thing that made me tear up was, and it was when Chandler's mom shared the post from Chandler's personal Facebook account, which I did share it from the AIW Facebook, but she went back and found that post from 2016, and it's just like, man, both of these guys are gone. And not to bring it, back to the politics or whatever, but it's like one presidential term, two of these guys are gone, it's crazy. It's crazy. And, I would think that the time frame of when Chandler got sick is right around the corner from when that photo was taken.
Yeah.
And they're both just so happy and laughing because, Chandler had Gringo Loco buy all that Cubs shit on from street vendors or whatever in Chicago when the Cubs beat the Indians. Like instantly that night when they're celebrating in Chicago, like Biggins is like texts Gringo Loco and was like, "Hey, you got to get me one of those fly the W flags and get me a shirt." Yeah, it's just man, it is. It's sad, when you really think about that. And I was trying to figure out. I was actually talking to Aaron Bauer a little bit about this, and he's like, "Man, like all these people we know are dying." And the weird thing about being involved in wrestling, and I don't think fans can appreciate this part, is when you're involved in it, it's like you have this crazy extended family.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so easy when you don't see somebody. You always hear like, "Oh, I didn't see this person for 5 or 10 years." And like, you just pick right up where you left off. And it's this weird camaraderie or whatever you want to call it. But it's like you have this extended family. And, it's just so hard when somebody that is in that extended family does pass away. And, obviously some are harder than others. And, Tracy Smothers is a big one. And then, it just gets me thinking like, okay, like Chandler's gone, JT is gone. Like, it just makes you, I don't know. It's just, it gets very kind of morbid because it's like, how often does somebody in your regular family die? I mean, it's, it happens.
Sure.
But like in wrestling, it's like a never ending supply of possible cousins or whatever, aunts and uncles that could pass away. And it is, I mean, it's tough to kind of figure out how to deal with that. And everybody deals with it differently. And, it's just, man, it's bummed me out, and I'm getting kind of, I'm dealing with it. But yeah, when when Chandler's mom posted that, I was like, man, and like it has that timestamp on it, and you don't, I don't think any of us have really even totally evaluated or whatever, processed Chandler dying. And like, it's all a blur, I think, to everybody in AIW.
Yeah, I would agree.
And when you look at 2016, like, that seems like it was yesterday, like literally yesterday. And like, that photo was taken in November of 2016. We're in November of 2020. And it is, that photo could have been taken last weekend, and
yeah.
It's just all such a blur, and I don't want this to be like a bummer podcast, but it's it's crazy when you like see like that, those definitive, those dates, what I mean?
Yeah, like on one hand, we've just kind of kept going and plugging away, while obviously remembering him, as everybody knows, and we put the shows in his name, and we continuously talk about him, and maybe that's it, because we're never going to let go of Chandler Biggins. That's not going to happen, and we're going to continuously talk about him as if he's here, if we want to, because he's a huge part of what we are, and you're right. It's like that makes it feel like it was still just yesterday, but it's that picture, November 2016, and then just a few months later, in March of 2017, Chandler gets sick, and it's crazy. I don't know how to convey it in words. I don't.
Yeah, it's really hard, and I don't know if people that even listen to this podcast really fully grasp it, but that has really been the bummer of the pandemic, though, is like you have time to sit and think, and we were like, we can get into this too, but like, we did the 2 shows, and it's just like, I feel like it was good for us to get it out of our system. You know what I mean? I feel like we were all getting antsy. We were all getting stir crazy. And, we were able to do the 2 shows. And, there are positives and negatives, obviously, coming out of them. And I do feel good that we were able to get that out of our systems, And it's just like, because we were all going crazy. None of us were seeing each other. And, we were going to do more. And we decided, hey, like, let's maybe just, slow it down and let's chill out for a second. Because we were getting so, there's the Mr. Whiskers cameo for the podcast. But we were getting so, I don't know, like, so just like back in the saddle again, or whatever you want to call it. It's just like September did good. Obviously the show at the Collective did fairly well. But then we come back, and it's just like again, kind of going back to the the fan thing, is like everyone was very kind of judgmental of everybody that participated in the Collective, and it's just like, okay, well, not everybody, people supported it and were, and
a lot of support there,
very, very thankful of that. But it's just like everything else, like in entertainment, you gravitate towards those not supportive things. You know what I mean? And you start looking at that, and then you start looking at the data that's in the statistics in Ohio, and it's just like, okay, like let's just call it for the year. Like I called it for the year, and nobody even knew that we had shows on the books. It wasn't advertised, but we just had to we had to call it for the year, and I'm happy we did, because it's like, we got to go get back on the pirate ship again for about a month there, and now it's just like, okay, let's just calm down and see what happens. But we were definitely in full speed ahead mode there for a second.
We really were. Yeah, we were ready to go. We started contemplating all sorts of new and different things that we could potentially do on top of trying to figure out dates and venue stuff. And, I mean, it is good. It is good that we canceled it. Even when we did, we thought about, well, hey, we're going to get into winter. Is this going to get worse? Hell on Earth traditionally is on Black Friday. Is it worth it? Is it really, truly safe if people are gathering with their friends and family on Thanksgiving or out drinking Thanksgiving Eve, and then they come to Hell on Earth? And there's a lot of unknowns there. And that's before Ohio broke 5,000 in one day, by the way.
Right. And, that's the thing is, like, if we ran Black Friday, which we were working towards, I definitely think that the sport would be there. I definitely think that the fans would be there. But what would the fallout be from that? We don't know. Like I brought it up, to the quote unquote, AIW inner circle, not to infringe on any trademarks, but like, hey, like, here's some pros, here's some cons. And the big con is there's so much controversy around Thanksgiving just as a regular human,
Yeah.
Like it's on all the news channels and all the governor, addresses, in different states. And it's just like, I don't know, I was feeling a lot of stress coming out of the collective, and obviously there were some positive cases floating around there, and, it seems like it has all worked out and everybody, turned out fine. But, it's just like, is it worth kind of trying to do this show on holiday weekend? And I just thought that, that would it would just put ammo in the gun for people to just criticize. So I just figured let's just stop. Let's just call it for 2020. Let's see how things go over the next 2 months, and we will reevaluate in January.
Yeah, and what we've got, and we've still got that responsibility to the people being in there to. But
I will say,
a safe show,
obviously, we would have done safety precautions.
100%.
But, I do watch things on IWTV, and there are shows that aren't, like, to be quite honest, are not abiding by anything. And everyone's like, this is the greatest. So, it's like just the contradictions and the hypocrisy is, I don't know, it really weighed on me about, like I said, the Tracy Smothers stuff, and now the to do event to not do event stuff. And it's just like, let's just chill out. Let's hope everybody calms down. Let's hope this COVID thing gets under control. And, in 2021, we can get back to normal. Because if there's one thing I did realize when we did the show in September and October in Indianapolis is at AIW, everyone genuinely enjoys being around each other and working hard. And, the Matt Justice for the brand, like, let's, that part, was, like, that was the great parts of doing those two shows, was realizing that. Because, there was points of this pandemic where it's just like, fuck it, let's just shut it down. I don't know. Like, you go through all these different dark emotions of just like, who cares? Nobody gives a shit anyway, and it's just like, doing those shows and getting it out of our systems or whatever you want to call it, like, it made me realize, like, we can't give up on this. We do have something special here. We just have to, we have to weigh it out when we do it. Like, and I have absolutely zero regrets about doing both of those shows. I think they're both very successful. They're both very needed. I do have, regrets that just how things were received. They obviously were not well received by everybody, and that is regrettable. And I understand, people have their opinions, and there's a lot of data out there, and I'm not questioning that. But like, everybody took proper precautions, and they realized what they were getting themselves into. And from what it appears, everybody, whether they were sick or not, has recovered. And I think that is the story that needs to be told about, you don't hear that part of the story. And it's just, you hear a lot of the negative stuff, but, and God forbid it didn't turn out happy for everybody, but It seems like it did. And, really that's why I didn't even want a podcast, because, a guy like Tracy Smothers, who is a diehard AIW fan, I was terrified. I was terrified. I was worried sick about this guy for 3 weeks. I checked on him like every single day, and he's going to be okay. And, there were really no other, at least to our knowledge, really positives in our camp or whatever you want to call it. But like Tracy Smothers was like, I'm positive on Facebook. And I was like, that was terrifying, I think, for all of us. And, he's going to be okay, it sounds like. And now that I know that he's going to be okay, I feel a little less kind of stressed, and, I don't know, okay, as long as everything starts turning the corner, AIW will make an effort in early 2021 to come back, as long as we're allowed to. But there was a minute there where I was like, fuck it, we are done for months, and I don't want to put that blame on Stacy, but that's just it's just I felt that I felt responsible for that, even though, he came and it was his choice. It was just this guy traveled to support us. He caught COVID. Fuck, what are we, this sucks, and this could be potentially just so this could turn out bad. And, it sounds like he's doing better and he's going to be okay. But, just stuff like that. I don't know. The stress of it all, just really kind of weighed on me. And, if you don't want any shows to happen, I appreciate that. But you can't want some shows to happen and some shows not to happen. I don't know. I watched some shows on IWTV, and it looked like it was fucking in a COVID factory. So, let's just all kind of chill out and see what happens. But I guess that's a long-winded way to say we're not going to do any shows.
We're not going to be doing anything. Yeah, it's you see the point of the stress factor of it all. I can tell you that the collective sure was done well in terms of keeping people safe while they were there. Masks being worn, sanitizer everywhere. Obviously, from the standpoint of guys on the show, the ring was being cleaned and wiped down constantly. People got checked, heading in. All sorts of precautions were taken. But the stress comes in then. I think that what we've learned and realized is, hey, look, you can't control the stuff outside of it, right? So Stacy and, a couple wrestlers obviously have mentioned that they had been positive coming out of the weekend, but Stacy was at our show specifically. It comes to all AIW shows. You think about, all right, the fans have come to this, and I'll be honest, there's places John, you and I were there for a few days, and there were places that we went into in Indiana, and I remember, and
there were no rules. I mean,
it seemed like it was, a madhouse. And so I think, that becomes part of your perspective is all right, I know that I'm doing my job to keep people safe while they're at my show.
Right, but you can't, and I think
everything else.
I think that's what we realized is we can create the cleanest, most like the safest environment, and anybody that says the collective was unsafe, that is just not true. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody was taking the precautions, and everybody, we had hand sanitizer, we were sanitizing the ring, and
Temperature
honestly,
checks as people come in. Yeah.
honestly, like that is why we ended up going over time, which we'll get over. But the cleaning of everything, we flew in September, but we were not as efficient in October. And all of a sudden we were really against the clock, which that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
But what I did realize is, okay, maybe you could control it with 200 people. Maybe, but even then you don't know. And you don't know who, what gas station they went to or where they went to eat, or there's just, I don't know.
Who's staying at the hotel that they're staying at, and you're all pushing an elevator button.
Right.
It's
And
a lot,
what I did realize, though, and I think a lot of people realize this, if you are back to work and you're not working at home, is indie wrestling, and it sounds ridiculous, is taking a lot more precautions than just a lot of workplaces, because
Yeah.
if like if you're at a job, they just say like, hey, a person tested positive, but they don't tell you unless you get that call from the contact tracing from the health department. They don't tell you where you were or if you were at that same place or what, you know what I mean? So it's just like, at least there was a lot of transparency coming out of it, and a lot of people were, hey, I'm sick, like people were doing they're being proactive about it, which you don't see in a lot of other workplaces or industries, or if the host at the Texas Roadhouse, they're not gonna shut down the whole place,
Right.
like they're just gonna tell that person to go home, and like it's very strange. And I've just, from talking to people who have, coming out of the collective, obviously, and if they learn they're exposed, a lot of workplaces weren't like, yeah, you have to get a test to come back to work. Like a lot of people were like, it's just like it kind of how it still was in March. Like, do you have any symptoms? No. Okay, go on. Like don't get a test, come to work.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're covering so many different crazy topics, but like, that's what happens when we don't do this for, I don't know, how long has it been? 3-4 weeks?
Yeah, something like that.
But, and that's why I didn't want to do one, because like we're waiting to see what happens with everything going on, and then like we were gonna podcast last week and your power went out. So like,
yeah, we had some crazy windstorms here in Cleveland, Ohio. It was great.
But I wanted to wait and see like how was this gonna turn out for everybody. Now I don't know, we're a month removed from the collective. It seems like everybody is headed in the right direction as far as recovering and testing negative on their follow-up testing and stuff like that. So all in all, I feel like it was a very good experience. I don't like the part of the story where like everyone jumps on everybody for running and just indicts us like we're criminals, and then nobody says, oh well, everybody, it turned out okay for everybody, like. And I'm not criticizing anybody that has an opinion on the pandemic. What I'm just saying is like, hey, okay, we took our licks, from everybody that was saying like, haha, I told you so, when those positive tests, and people were being transparent on the internet, and it just was like giving people ammo to be like, haha, like just, everybody was clout chasing, everybody had to dunk in on it, and, a lot of wrestlers had to dunk on it, and, that weren't booked, and promoters and all these different things were just, everybody was so quick to jump to conclusions, and nobody is going to be like, hey, did everybody recover? Oh, let's talk about that part too. Like, that's not the sensational part of the story. And like I said, I was worried about Tracy Smothers. It seems as if he is fully recovered. There weren't too many other positive cases coming out of the general Cleveland territory, but there were positive cases, and it seems like everybody handled it and has recovered or is recovering, depending on how they shed the virus. But I don't know. It's just that whole thing just really bothered me. Just and it goes like the Tracy Smothers thing. It's just like taking that, just taking those shots from fans, and you're not going to convince them of a different opinion anyway. But I got to sit there and I got to read it and I got to try to figure out how to navigate through it. And I don't know. It just maybe the whole thing just beat me down. But it was enough for me to be like, hey, let's just chill for the rest of the year. And to be perfectly honest, it was more of the statistics in Ohio. But I just knew that if we did Black Friday, which we were gonna do, it was just there were gonna be people that were going to never support AIW again, probably, for making that choice. And, I just figured it's not worth it right now.
Well, yeah. And in hindsight, with the statistics in Ohio having been climbing, it's honestly, it's the safer route to go anyway. So it all worked out. But in terms of, despite the fact that it didn't work out, that's how it goes sometimes. And, so
that's why, like some people were questioning, like I tweeted like the final chapter, when the Thunder in Indianapolis DVD came out last week, and it's just that's the final chapter for the year. That's probably the final chapter for the Bishop and Justice story, to be determined, obviously. But right now we got nothing on the books. So for now, that is going to be the last of AIW for the year, which brings up the question, what the fuck is this podcast going to be about? I don't know. I don't know. Like, we're going to try to still be consistent with it, because, before it was like we were doing them and then we realized the pandemic was not going away. So then we stopped doing them, thinking, until we had a end in sight. It seemed like the end was in sight, around August or so. And, we got those 2 shows on the books and we started doing this again. And now it appears that the no end in sight theory is ramping back up again. So we still have a lot of shows to recap that we've never done. So there is that, but they will run out eventually. Right. So, we'll try to stay consistent with this thing, and hopefully, I don't know if there's a vaccine coming or whatever's going to happen, depending on what news channel you're going to watch for the day. Everything's different. So we will at least try to stay consistent. We did get another one with Fonzie when we were in Indianapolis. So maybe I'll throw that out there next week, as long as, nothing completely life-changing happens in the next couple days.
Yeah, there you go. There you have it, folks. To go wrap this thing up with all the way back to the beginning, as we talked about Chandler Biggins and Tracy Smothers. We miss them both dearly, and I don't know what everybody believes in, but you'd like to think that somewhere those two are just making each other laugh hysterically with various stories and things right now.
Bags of Doritos.
That's going to do it here for us. For AIW owner John Thorne, my name's Steve Guy. We'll talk to you at some point right back here on AIW's The Card is Going to Change.
We'll probably be on next week.
There you go.
I don't know. Give us some feedback. Tell us what you want us to podcast about. You want us to review Monday Night Raw? Not doing that, but you can give that sort of feedback on what you want this podcast to be. So tweet us, Discord us, Patreon message us, Facebook comment, whatever. Give us some feedback. We'll talk about it Potentially.
There you go. There you have it.